Hey, everybody. Evan Kirstel here. Another great discussion today with Rebecca Johnson, CEO at Numerical. Rebecca, how are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. Super excited for this chat because, like most of us, I'm obsessed with robocalls. I'm obsessed with solutions to this plague on us all from a business standpoint. Before we dive into that, maybe introduce yourself and Numerical, a pioneer of call blocking and labeling visibility.
All right. And my parents, too, are interested in solving robocalls. If you're in the industry, your family seems to put all that responsibility on you. So I'm trying. We're trying to make a dent. So, yeah, Rebecca Johnson, founder and CEO of Numerical. And while we are addressing the call blocking and labeling issue for businesses, really at the heart of who we are is an identity management company, which introduced the concept of entity identity management through the challenge with voice calls. So that's at the heart and passion of what I love to talk about, and what I want to bring to the ecosystem is identity for businesses.
Well, it's such an important and overlooked topic. I'm a small business owner. I basically have my phone switched off for all intents and purposes
Yeah.
for phone calls. Um, but what's been the impact of your solution out on the business landscapes? How did you come to solving these kind of problems? And why aren't these solved yet? Why has it taken us to this point where we
Yeah, so
still don't
it's one
have a
of those
solution?
companies that I wish I didn't have to do. There's other things I could think of that would probably be more exciting, but it was a response to the FCC's robocall strike force in 2016. I participated in the Empowering Consumer Choice work group, and that was the group that made the decisions on, hey, let's label calls as fraud or spam or telemarketer or debt collector. And at the time, I worked for a CPaaS provider, and
Mhm.
instantly my clients, which were banks, large retail, healthcare, and I thought, this is actually going to be a really bad idea to guess on what calls are good or bad, because I knew enough at that time to know there's no identity information being delivered to the terminating carrier who's going to make a decision to label a call fraud or spam. So I raised the flag. I knew it would be detrimental. I mean, at the heart of it was healthcare communications. I thought, this is not going to be good. Patients really need to hear from their doctor about their lab results. I actually built programs to deliver lab results, critical ones that patients want to hear. And how does the carrier know they're not going to be blocking those types of calls? So it was a very serious matter. Unfortunately, it wasn't taken seriously until all my predictions came true. So that's how I started the company. I received a call from one of the three major wireless carriers, basically saying, wow, everything you said was going to happen is happening. What do we do? And identity was the first step. So that's how I got started.
Wow. Well, thank you for what you're doing. So I think we all understand the problem. What we don't understand are there's just so many solutions for the consumer side, but on the business side, how have you, taken steps to address this solution? And what's been some of the response from customers, from carriers, from policymakers to, the role of Numerical?
Everything you just listed was a requirement. Those were all stakeholders into solving this problem. Immediately after receiving that phone call, my response to this particular carrier was, we need more voices. It can't just be mine. We need to understand how the other carriers are viewing this problem. Is it unique to this particular carrier? It was not. We needed to bring the voice of the enterprise to the table. We need to bring the voice, or at least the ears, of the regulators to the table. And so that's what I did. I brought together, it was a communication protection coalition. We met once a quarter. And I will say, the carriers from day one, and I'm talking about AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and Sprint at the time, were very much interested in getting this right. The carriers were not sitting there going, oh, well, we'll just label whatever call we want to label it, fraud, spam. If we get the good guys, oh well. No, that was never, ever the approach that they took. So I do appreciate that they came to the table. We discussed how do we solve this. And in that group, I introduced the concept of why don't we look at the banks where they had challenges of fraudulent transactions, right? For money laundering, banks were a great place for people to funnel money in bad ways. Communications is no different. It is an anonymous infrastructure that fraudulent actors are leveraging to commit crimes. So one of the first steps in the banking side was know your customer. You have to know who your customers are and how they're leveraging your services. So in that group, that was back in 2017, we introduced the concept of know your customer. And it's just progressed 6 years later here of Numerical. We built a platform to help service providers comply with implementing know your customer. And just as of late yesterday, the FTC joined and decided, hey, we're going to start doing some more enforcement on service providers, and it's all around KYC. So it's something I saw coming down the future. I love this industry. I love communications, and really at the heart of what I do and what everyone at this company does is we're just trying to solve these problems so that businesses can continue to stay delivering communications in a compliant way.
Well, I love the focus on real world practical problem solving. We in telecom, we like to talk about 3 and 4 letter acronyms all the time, and shaken and stir and all the, I'm not sure what they even stand for, but starting with the basics, the fundamentals sounds like the way forward. And tell us, why is digital identity such an important concept, not just for businesses, but for brands, for contact centers? They all need to start thinking about that pretty urgently, right?
Well, I think we can all agree that bad actors are really good at identity and good actors are really bad at identity. And that's not new. That has been around for a very long time. We as consumers are very aware of when someone takes our identity and either obtains debt in our name or uses our credit card in our name. We're very aware of what happens when our identity isn't protected. And we have all these solutions to help us protect our identity. But the bad actors do the same thing with businesses. They will pose and pretend to be Social Security Administration. They'll pretend to be Marriott. They'll pretend to be your bank. And they will leverage the identity of the business to commit fraud against the consumer. So businesses, this is not a new thing for businesses, but it is new to start thinking about maybe we should be protecting our identity. And the best example, the springboard that really put on the spotlight why this matters was Twitter. Twitter with Elon Musk just completely destroyed and broke down the entire concept of verified and trust in exchange for $8 a month. And you got a blue check mark. Within moments, a bad actor decided to go ahead and create with a blue check mark an Eli Lilly Twitter account, posted a fake account saying insulin is free. Within moments, that had a huge impact on the company's stock price. And then it overflowed into other companies that are in the space of insulin. It hurt their stock price. So this has a real monetary impact when you don't take control of your identity. And we're globally, we're just getting into these concepts of digital identity and how do we leverage it within different communication channels. But was one of the best examples of why identity matters.
Oh, such a great illustration there. And while we're all obsessed with ransomware and InfoSec, as we should be, we got Black Hat coming up. The old-fashioned phone call is something we kind of take for granted or ignore. And, our phone numbers are critical parts of our cybersecurity, hygiene. So really great approach here. So how do you actually streamline a company's calling identity, and how does that work for the business kind of, and what do they see as the benefits over time?
Right. So specifically for the voice side, which has been the space that I've focused on from day one on trying to clean up identity, we built a platform, and this is starting to take off. So others are kind of, I think, entering this space now, but it's EIM. So here's your acronym. Sorry, we have to go with one. But it's Entity Identity Management. And it's a very simple concept. It is a way for a business to establish and verify its identity. And then specifically for voice, we're taking that verified identity, we are associating it with their telephone numbers, and then we distribute it down the appropriate channel. There's different data formats, different back and forth flows, which is fine that it can be that way. Standards where they could come in, I absolutely can adopt and accept a digital identity, specifically for voice. And I would say I want to also see this move over into messaging as well. The same business with the same telephone number that they use for voice, they'll use for messaging. Why should a business have to verify themselves yet again and over? Can you imagine if we as consumers, every time we crossed the state line, every time we boarded a plane, we'd have to re-verify ourselves? Or maybe each service has their own verification process. We would not have an economy if we as consumers had to do that. So we have state IDs. I can go in, you can go in, we bring some evidence with us, we're issued an ID, and then there's acceptance across borders. There's acceptance on an international level of we trust who provided that identity. Therefore, in exchange, you get access, you get a job, you can board a plane, you can pick up your kids from the school, right? There's all these things that identity empowers and allows us to do. That's a new concept coming over into the business space. So the first, and really when I looked at this problem that was happening with the voice channel, I said to myself, this is the birthplace for digital identity for businesses. And the reason is because every business communicates, whether it's voice, whether it's messaging, whether it's email, they have a form of communication. And this would be a great place where we have an identity problem. Carriers are calling this business a fraud. They're not a fraud. If you don't want to be called fraud, prove who you are. Simple. We'll verify your identity. And that's what the EIM platform is established about. And we want it to be one location for a business to have their identity vetted and verified one time and then distributed across the ecosystem.
Brilliant.
Sounds simple.
And it sounds simple, sounds so elegant. And I know there's a lot under the hood to make that work, a lot of complexity and integrations and all kinds of technologies. But it sounds so important. On one hand, we just think about, callers being, telemarketers and spammers, but when we miss those calls from a hospital or from a loved one or your doctor, your pharmacist, it really can be difficult, and it can be potentially, life-threatening if you miss important calls. So what a great opportunity to fix our broken system. What's next for you? We're sort of in the summer period here. What's next on your radar, travel personally, professionally, or otherwise through?
Well, the FCC is always a great place for more activities. So August 9th is when we will be filing comments related to the notice of inquiry around labeling. I absolutely appreciate that the FCC, after 5 years now, I guess, since the first rulings around this, are seeking comments on basically the state of the union. How is this going? What is occurring with labeling? And Numerical is the leader on that topic. So I've received a lot of inquiries from other businesses asking, are you filing? Of course. Of course we're filing. We kind of created this space. So we will be providing some detailed insights into hundreds and hundreds of customers and different industries. How are they impacted by improper labeling? What is the financial impact on these businesses when this is wrong? How are the carriers responding to the requirements to remediate on a business request? They also are required to remediate for consumer complaints as well, too. So we're just going to give, a really thoughtful, factual response. Granted, probably going to be some people who don't like it. you don't like what we say, got to look in the mirror, start there. That's usually how we report the facts. I always say, if you don't like the facts, what's beautiful is you're the one who created them, so you get to change them. So that would be our recommendation. So that's a big focus for us. And then really just driving the message of verified identity within the standards to be delivered down to device manufacturers is the area that we really need to advance in the market. I filed comments with the FCC about that, calling it end-to-end identity verification. It starts with the business that would attach their identity to their call at the time of the call, have it delivered all the way down to the device. The carrier receives the information, and then an Apple or a Samsung device renders that display of verified information. But I will only be on support with that if it truly is verified and not a pay $8 and you can get a check mark. The whole thing falls apart. So telecom, you are second up to the plate. Hopefully you swing and you hit it out of the park and you don't make a blunder like Twitter. But all eyes on us if we get this right.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for bringing us into the 21st century and telecom. And interesting, it takes an innovative, young, independent company like Numerical to kind of move the ball forward amongst these tech giants that are around us. So well done.
And a little bit
as far as that goes. And yeah, thanks for our brief chat today. Thanks for watching, everyone. And, reach out to Rebecca on Twitter, on LinkedIn with any feedback or questions. And thanks for watching. Much appreciated.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you.